Hello. Today's talk is entitled Letting Yourself Out of Prison. First, we're going to start with an affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment. Take these next moments to close your eyes, to take a deep breath, and to exhale that breath. And on the next inhale, allowing your mind and your heart to open as we reflect on these truths. I find myself in the midst of the infinity of life. There is but one life expressed in myriad ways. Every star hung in the sky, every planet shining in space, every galaxy in its spin is an expression of one infinite life. The towering trees, the oceans teeming with life, the birds of the air, and every face of every person on this planet is an expression of this one life, whose infinite intelligence permeates and sustains every expression of what we call life. I know that this infinite intelligence is also my life, right here and right now. I know that the very life that breathes air into my lungs and beats my heart is the one infinite intelligence that hung the stars and put the galaxy into their spin. I know, therefore, that I am cradled in the midst of this ever-flowing life. I am abundantly loved, surrounded by beauty and joy, for I know I am a beloved child of the universe. Therefore, everything I need is provided for me and comes to me in the perfect time, space, and availability. The truth of my life, the very fiber of my being, is perfect intelligence in every muscle and bone, every organ, every single cell. I experience perfect circulation and mobility, perfect absorption, and perfect metabolism. I know that my body is in harmony with the rhythm and flow of life, and I give thanks for this expression as perfect health. All apparent dis-ease falls away and is washed away by my newfound awareness of the perfection of all of life. I know that I am on a limitless voyage of discovery and growth. I choose to release myself from the prison of limited thinking, from resentment of the past, and worry about the future. I choose now to trust in the power that created and continues to sustain me. I know that everything I need is revealed to me, and everything comes to me in the perfect time and sequence for my liberation. I am free to love and to be loved. It is with a grateful heart that I release and let go, and so it is. You and I profess that we wish to change our thinking to change our lives. We say this at so many junctures, every week in this spiritual practice of coming together to contemplate a spiritual truth or a spiritual principle, to think about one of the spiritual tools in our toolbox. You might also have your own contemplation practice where you're reading or listening to spiritual subjects, or perhaps reading something on increasing your awareness or edifying yourself on many topics, all with the intent of changing how you think so that you can change your life, so that you can find that your life also changes. We know that when what we think about tends to come about, that what we give out, we get back, that what we think about ourselves and about life becomes the truth for us because we're practicing thinking and feeling it to be so. And we know that the universe supports us in the thoughts we choose to think and to believe. Perhaps you have an affirmation practice, a visualization practice. You practice saying and thinking and visualizing the things that you wish to have outpictured in your life. You practice treating your frame of mind and then moving your feet. You live your life as if you have already received. And yet, how many of us are clinging to an identity that no longer serves us? You and I are certain that we know who we are, what we like and what we don't like, what we do, what we're not so good at. Do you ever stop to think that cleaving to the very idea that we are who we are, and also what we are not, can act like a sort of prison of belief if we have brought it into our lives and never challenged it. I'm going to read a brief passage now from a book called Trying to be Human by the Zen teacher Sherry Huber that I think speaks to this idea, and it's entitled The Prison We Think of as Home. In it she says, "We cling to the identity provided by our conditioning as if it were life itself, but in fact it is the source of our suffering. A funny thing, or fascinating or sad depending on your a funny thing, or fascinating or sad depending on your perspective, is that most people are already in hell, and they are fighting desperately to stay there. A teacher once said that as long as we stay trapped in our conditioned responses in the illusion of separateness, we are like people in a prison who have abandoned our own hearts for so long that we have decorated the prison and think of it as our home. If someone came with a key to let us out, we would surely kill that person." Conditioned responses are replayed almost constantly in our minds, from parental messages like "you should know better than that," which undermine our sense of adequacy, to the punitive thoughts we use to try to make ourselves live up to an idea of how we ought to be, to the subtlest of judgments in which we align ourselves with a certain standard and thereby deprive ourselves of everything that doesn't meet that standard. The subjugation we experience through our conditioning is far crueler than anything anyone else could inflict upon us. The source of our suffering is our very effort to protect ourselves, the misguided attempt to defend the illusion of separateness. This is what delusion or ignorance refer to in Buddhism. This is the prison we think of as home, the bondage we mistake for safety. Perhaps the most important concept here, and there are many important concepts, but the key here is this idea that Sherry Huber states as such: the subtlest of judgments in which we align ourselves to a certain standard and thereby deprive ourselves of everything that doesn't meet that standard. You might hear this and think, well, of course, I live a decent life, so of course I'm protecting myself from the bad things in the world. But what Huber is really saying here is that you and I have this idea of what we are and what we're not, what we should do and what we shouldn't do, who we ought to be and who we are not. You and I might currently be convinced that we know it all. We are living a perfectly just life. The way we are living is the correct way, and yet in 5 days, in 5 months, in 5 years, we might have an epiphany and realize that indeed we were misguided all this time. We were missing a huge part of the picture, and all that time we were missing out on something we didn't allow ourselves to have or to be or to do or experience. And that's not all. Remember, she says we have subjugated ourselves to this notion that there are standards or ranks of living. We are doing better than others or worse than others. We are doing better than we believed we would or worse. We're doing better than we ought to, or we're not where we ought to be. This means that you and I cut ourselves off from things that we don't deserve because we've sized ourselves up. We've taken our own measure and said, this is the level I'm at. Any more than this, we also don't deserve. Your subconscious mind is working to keep you at the level you think you deserve. And because your subconscious mind is connected to the divine mind, because this is the level that connects us to the collective subconscious, the stuff of creation, this is what powers the law to work. And this is what brings you back what you expect to find. So one of the most important things that we can do to loose the bonds that we have placed upon ourselves in the name of staying safe. Playing it safe often means playing it small. We trade so much freedom for certainty. We trade so much liberty, so much latitude in our lives in order to feel safe, in order not to have any surprises. But if you don't have any surprises, how are miracles supposed to come to you? How are things supposed to change in the blink of an eye? How are you and I meant to be free? You see, you and I have fear because we don't believe in our heart of hearts that there is only a force for good in the universe. We forget, we fall asleep, we become complicit in this big conditioning program, where we basically use self-suggestion to keep ourselves laboring under this belief that this is who I am, this is what I am, and I can be no other way. The truth is that there isn't always something to do in our lives as much as there is something to know in our lives. There is something to practice, and that is knowing the truth about who and what you are. And it is also a reminder that we have the opportunity every single day to practice meditation so that we get better at paying attention to what is actually happening and noticing this, rather than simply believing the story that we tell ourselves about what is going on and what it means. These are not the same. Reality as it happens in the here and now is not the same as the story you and I tell ourselves about what that means. And so let this be the first day in this week of pairing these practices together, meditation and affirmation. In your meditation practice, practice paying attention. Use, of course, mindfulness of the breath, but also allow yourself to pick one activity where you are going to stay present. And when you notice your mind telling you a story, or wandering and going down the rabbit hole, bring yourself back to what you're doing and notice that the story you were telling yourself is not the actual activity. It is a story. And then in your affirmations, let them center on waking up, remaining aware, remembering who and what you are, and allow yourself to dare to let go of the stories you have told yourself about who you are, that identity you've been wearing for so long, like a comfortable old sweater, but one that nonetheless is ready to be put away. Allow yourself to be different, to be made new each and every moment. Allow yourself to be surprised. You may be pleasantly surprised after all. I know the truth of you, and that is that you are a beloved child of the universe. I know that life loves you. That is the whole truth. And so it is.